Welcome my friends, this is maniacalinc back with another video on Insular Christianity in Crusader Kings 3. When I made the last one, I was expecting that the next time I will talk about Insular Christianity is after the release of the Fate of Iberia DLC. So the Pope would be patched in, I'd get to take him for a test drive, see what Insular is like with the Pope as head of faith, see what changes were and weren't made, and make a video then. But the Dev Diary that was put up yesterday by PDX Medoc, Dev Diary 98, The Castle's Foundation, it has a couple of interesting things in the actual Dev Diary itself. If it was just the Dev Diary, I probably wouldn't have made this video, but what is of most interest is the questions that the community asked and the answers that PDX Medoc gave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick look down through the Dev Diary and then look at those questions, because I think they have some very interesting ramifications for Insular Christianity. Well, there's no such thing as Insular Christianity anymore. Rip in peace, Insular Christianity, F's in chat. We'll see what I mean there in a second. So here is the CK3 Dev Diary, number 98. I'm not going to go down through all the stuff. Clan contract. That's really interesting. Scotland and Ireland. Scottish clans are getting some love. That's interesting. Not too sure why it's going in a patch about Spain, but there you go. Dissolution faction for the HRE, I believe, or dissolution factions come up in various different areas, and here we are with, if I am correct, this has only happened of recent, the newly renamed, I'll actually bring up the image, Insularism. So Insular Christianity is gone. It is now Insularism. And what is most interesting, I think, of this, first of all, we have a couple of things. We have Insularism, but there he is. Our big boy, the Pope, in his big hat and his gloved hand, stroking his beard, patched in as the head of Insularism. Now, for me, the most dramatic change here, and I think it's a bit brave. I wouldn't have expected Paradox to do something like this, but the Pope is now a polygamist. The Pope endorses and legitimizes polygamy. Like I said, that's a bit shocking, that's a bit brave. I didn't think they'd go and do something like that. Now you might be saying, what? Where does it say that? No, marriage type is monogamous. Insularism has been changed to monogamous with a while. Let's go back. It doesn't say, no, it doesn't say anywhere. It doesn't say it explicitly, but it now implies that the Pope legitimizes polygamy. The Irish, of course, have polygamy as a cultural tradition from the last DLC. I genuinely cannot remember the name of it. I think it was Overlord. It's the one that introduced cultures and hyper relays. So if you build a hyper relay in Desmond and another in Thomond, you can get from county to county faster. Am I right? Anyway, the last DLC brought in polygamy for the Irish as a cultural tradition. So the Irish can now go off, as they always could, and get 4 wives. Because divorce must be approved, has been left on in Insularism. If you as an insular ruler take 4 wives, and you want to divorce one of them, their father, up in Connacht, has been deposed, and the alliance is no good, you have to go to the Pope. Unless there is some cultural tradition that has been put in that makes you go to the head of culture, which is still nonsense, but you have to go to the Pope and ask him for permission to divorce one of your 4 wives. And in this case, the Pope can do one of 2 things. He can either grant a divorce, or he can refuse. The numerous things that God has joined together, only God can rend asunder. You have made your beds, and you must rotate between them. Either way, the Pope is implicitly now granting legitimacy to your polygamous marriages. If I was to go and marry 4 people tomorrow morning, and then go to the Catholic Church and ask to divorce one of them, the Church wouldn't say, yes, we will grant you a divorce. You shouldn't have married all of these people in the first place. It's wrong. So yes, we will grant you a divorce. They wouldn't say, no, You've married all these people. It's a loophole somehow. I don't know how you managed it. You got around it. And now you're stuck with them. What the church would say is, we do not recognize the legitimacy or validity of any of these marriages. We are not making a statement anywhere. By allowing or even refusing to grant a divorce, the Pope, in this case, is effectively legitimizing polygamy. Historically, we've dealt with this before, the Irish didn't even practice marriage. You can't be in breach of the marriage laws if you don't get married. The Irish treated marriage as a contract, and individuals would in effect negotiate as many contracts as they were economically able to sustain. One of the terms that's quite often used for Irish marriage laws is economic polygamy. And as this was a contract, these contracts could be dissolved at will. So another term that you hear quite often is divorce at will. There was no reference to a head of faith, there was no reference to the Pope, there was no reference to the local church. The marriages quite often were conducted outside of the church, because again, they were conducted under Brehon law, and this is the point that I was making in the last video. Brehon law determines marriage law. Brehon law also determines divorce law. So the point I made in the last video was, always allowed divorce should be on. If the Pope is coming in as the head of Insular Christianity, and if Insular Christianity is staying, always allowed divorce should be put on, or you're going to end up in a kind of a silly scenario like this. I never actually even thought of this as being possible until I actually saw him there with must be approved. So after the last video, I put up a poll asking what people would like to see. Leave Insular Christianity in with some minor changes. Take Insular Christianity out and represent true culture. Leave Insular Christianity in as it is, with no changes, and that's what we're actually getting. Just add the Pope and nothing else. Leave the divorce laws, and I presume it'll be down here. You can't appoint your own realm priest. That's more of a roleplay aspect. This one's more of a roleplay aspect as well, really. I mean, it doesn't make a difference at the end of the day, but it just looks silly that you might have to go to the Pope 4 times to divorce all your wives. But there you go, the Pope is now polygamous. Fair play to him. He's on side with the winning side. Obviously the Pope isn't polygamous because he can't get married. It's a bit of a clickbaity title. That's going to be the title. CK3 makes the Pope polygamous. But that's the implicit consequences of leaving must be approved divorce on. The next thing we can see here. What a glorious victory. Pastoral Isolation is gone. RIP in peace, F's in chat for Pastoral Isolation. I was never a big fan of it. And right has been put in. So we'll click out of the screen. We'll come down and we will take a look at what right does. Now right, of course, is what puts the man with the big hat in as the head of Insular Christianity. And it doesn't really do much else. But it will have an impact on a number of things that aren't explicitly stated here, but we're going to see now in a couple of seconds when we go down through some of the community questions. But yeah, there you go. Pastoral Isolation. I never liked it. I grew to accept the minus 10% dev penalty. I'm surprised that Paradox dropped the minus 10% dev penalty and kept Vow of Poverty. I would have thought, well, of course, Pastoral Isolation was created specifically to get around this problem of not having the Pope in as the head of Insular Christianity from the start, from launch on day one. And I think there was one other religion that used it. This is a rather interesting decision. The fact that you need a tenet to keep or to introduce the Pope as the head of Insular Christianity and I presume a number of other faiths, it kind of shows the game creaking ever so slightly under the weight of religion. This seems to have been a major problem with the game's code since day one. The game was launched, I remember when I did my first series in September, I think it finished around October, November of 2020, and I was saying I won't do another series until the Pope is patched in. I expected this was going to be a month or two. It's been a year and a half, close enough. And this is how that is being achieved. This is how the Pope is being patched in, is with a rite. And I'm surprised at that, kind of. I know some people have talked about the idea that it doesn't seem as though cultures, which we saw introduced with the last DLC, it doesn't look as though cultures were planned from the start. So religion is put in from day one. Religion can't have the same head of faith as the head of multiple faiths. They're trying to find ways around this, and then all of a sudden cultures comes in. And it's especially suited to Ireland, to representing various different cultural practices, which had before this been put in Insular Christianity, which I and a few others theorize exists purely just to represent polygamy. We can now do that through culture. There's a number of other things that we can do through culture, but now we're swinging back to religion and putting in this rite. It seems a bit, I won't say stopgap, kind of taped on. I don't know if this was the solution that they had day one. Was this the idea that they had when the game launched? We're going to sort the Pope out with a rite, but we just don't have the ability to do it right now. Now, it does have some interesting implications. One is we have now solidified the idea that the Irish are not Catholic. That is what is being absolutely, unequivocally stated here. The Irish are not Catholic. They are a completely different faith. That's the way it always was. But I took that to be a kind of a stopgap until the Pope could be patched in as the head of multiple faiths. And what I took that to be, maybe this was rather foolish, and maybe this is, again, because I pretty much only play in Ireland, that the Pope being the head of Insular Christianity and Catholicism would basically put the two of them on equal footing. It is very clear, and we're going to see this coming up, that the Pope is the head of Catholicism. He's also, there's raving lunatics on a small island way off there, off to the west, claiming him as well. When they've married 4 women and they want to divorce one of them, they'll send him off a letter, they'll ask him for money every once in a while. But he is the Catholic head of faith, and he is the head of faith of Catholicism. He's also the head of faith of other faiths, like Insular Christianity, but he is not the insular head of faith. That mightn't make much sense now. We're going to see some questions in a second that also mightn't help it make sense, but it makes sense to me. And that's the most important thing. Let's go and look at some of these questions. One proud Bavarian probably spends a couple of hours reading the Dev Diary, highlighting all the stuff. I just insular into Control F, insular, job done. Here is a question that was put forward by Rubidium. Quick questions about the shared head of faith. So these are really interesting. Can you participate in Great Holy Wars called by your head of faith? So an insular Christian can join a Catholic crusade. And these answers come in from PDX Medoc. No. The Great Holy War is specific to a faith, not a religion. So Insularism is part of the Christian faith. I've already messed up. Insularism is part of the Christian religion. Christianity is a religion. Insularism and Catholicism are 2 faiths under that. Catholicism is what can call Crusades, I think. So no, the Great Holy War is specific to a faith. Insular Christianity is going to have to call its own crusade if it wants to go and fight in Jerusalem. I don't actually think it can. Next question that was put forward here. Conversely, if your tenants allow it, or tenets, or your tenants, can you call a Great Holy War despite your head of faith, the nominal declarer, being of a different faith? No. So I said that the Irish would have to declare their own Great Holy War for Jerusalem. Am I wrong? I'm taking that as the Irish cannot declare, again I say the Irish, insular Christians cannot declare a holy war. I would love to see somebody cover Insular Christianity without talking about Ireland. So Insular Christianity, how it should be represented without talking about Ireland, because this is what I do. Insular and Irish, interchangeable, which is wrong. Wales, Scotland, Northern England should also be considered. I considered Scotland and Wales in the last episode when it was of benefit to my point in trying to shoot down the Order of St. Patrick. But then it's just back to Ireland. But, so no, it doesn't look as though with a Catholic head of faith, the Irish cannot, or Insular Christians cannot declare a Great Holy War, if I am looking at that correctly. Likewise for things like asking your head of faith for money, and you can ask your head of faith for money even if you don't have the same faith, and that's really the kind of the kicker. The Irish are not the same faith as the Pope. So like I said, we are seeing very much the Irish are not Catholic. Totally wrong, totally ahistorical. On the one hand, I can understand why it has to be done from a coding point of view. On the other hand, I don't understand why it has to be done from a coding point of view, but it is ahistorical. But how much of an impact that has on gameplay is the next question. And we can only answer that question after the DLC comes out. So I'll kind of hold off on making any mad statements about that just yet. So another big block of questions in Fofotron asked, are faiths with the shared head of faith able to have one of their own elected to be the head of faith? As in Insular. Are they able to get their own to be elected as Pope? And the answer is not in the current implementation. That means it could be open in future, but at the moment, no. When the Catholics call a crusade, are the faiths with the same that share the Pope as head of faith able to join the crusade? No. So we've gone over that already. Here's an interesting one though. Are Catholic rulers able to join a defensive holy war on the side of an insular ruler? Yes. They can join a defensive holy war of the other faith with the same head. You can join defensive holy wars, but not offensive holy wars. Now, I suppose at this point in time, we can have a bit of a discussion on the Irish in the Crusades and Irish popes. The second one is quite easy. No such thing. Never was an Irish pope. So historically, we don't exactly have Irish popes or anything like that, but we are now being told that only Catholics can become the Catholic head of faith, which then also makes them the head of faith of other faiths. So again, like I said, there is a head of faith of Insularism, but there is no Insularist head of faith. For Crusades, again, the Irish didn't exactly take part in all that many Crusades, so the fact that, and this is really all Insularism in the game does now, is it blocks the Irish from taking part in Crusades. It blocks insular rulers from taking part in Crusades. From a historical point of view, that's not a big deal. You want to play in the Crusade, just pick somebody else. Or convert to Catholicism. Have the Irish convert to Catholicism. I went over the problems with that in the last episode as well, so it's not that big a deal. But it's just kind of strange. If you want to keep the unique peculiarities, but the most important one, polygamy, is now represented in culture. I'm trying to accept Insular Christianity staying in the game, but I'm actually beginning to see even less and less of a reason for it to do so. I think it's, and of course you see you're overcomplicating matters to handle something that could be handled a lot easier. I suppose I can also, in terms of Crusades, point you to Medieval Irish History's channel, and I'll put up a link to that. A couple of videos on Irish figures, Irish adjacent figures connected to Ireland who took part in Crusades. So I'll stick up a link to that. But One Proud Bavarian put up my last video on his Discord. I'm on the Discord, but I haven't even sent off the verification thing yet. And I was lurking around there one day and I saw my video. But it was a couple of days after it had gone up, and he tried getting a conversation going around it, but nobody was too interested. But one of the things he said was that he didn't see a vector. He didn't seem to support my idea for getting rid of Insular Christianity. He didn't see a vector for how reform could be carried out. So the type of reform that I was talking about, how you would reform Irish culture away from practices which are not supported by the Pope. Now, I thought I mentioned this in the video, but I mustn't have, because somebody else actually posted a comment in the video explaining that very vector, if I'm understanding the meaning of vector correctly. If you play as an Irish ruler, you are culturally polygamous. If you convert to Catholicism, the Pope will ask you to reform. He will ask you to abandon polygamy or suffer 2 devotional levels of a drop of 2 devotional levels. So this is how we do it. This is how we represent reform. Just like I said, the 1080s, you have Thurlock O'Brien, High King of Ireland, and the Pope is coming to him and encouraging him to reform. So there is some flag in the game there, that if you are a Catholic ruler and your culture is polygamous, the Pope comes to you and tells you, stop it. So I mean, again, we can represent this stuff through culture a lot easier, a lot more accurately. And I don't know, is the right just kind of feeling a bit tacked on, and is it complicating matters? Anyway, I'm probably complicating matters. And this person's complicating matters, Gibbous Ghastly, that's a great name. Can the Pope be insular? Not the current implementation. And September. Is there any way to usurp the primacy of the Head of Fate title, such as making the papacy insular? No, but it's a funny idea. Funny? I don't know. So those are all the questions that have been asked so far. There might actually be a couple more questions asked, but they haven't been answered as of yet. So I'm going to just take a look at some of the comments that people have been making. Here is Indigo Rage. Indigo Rage commented on my last Insular Christianity video last night to tell me that there had been some announcements made about what Insular was going to look like. And I thought, I'll give him a quick look and see what exactly is there. Read the Dev Diary. Read the answers that PDXMeDoc put up. Nearly had a heart attack. It wasn't a quick look. I was looking at this for ages, so Indigo Rage, you've knocked a couple of years off my life. I was living a great, calm, peaceful life until you sent me that message. So Indigo Rage here is, again, I find it difficult to argue with the language used here. Dead space to describe rights. All it really does is allows you to have the head of faith of another religion. As much as I hated Pastoral Isolation, at least it did something. They've also asked, has Irish culture been touched at all? Now I'm wondering if the implication there is, where did you hide that minus 10% dev penalty? I wouldn't be amazed if they've put that in somewhere. So no polygamy in Insular isn't a good sign, and some people, that's more than likely me, have been arguing that it's pointless to exist now that culture exists. And the divorce is requiring permission too, so I hadn't spotted this until I'd already realised, oh dear God, the Pope is now implicitly polygamous. But yeah, I'm interested to see, are they going to do anything with the cultures? Are they going to touch the culture to try and get that dev penalty in somewhere? I'm surprised they gave it up. I really am surprised they gave it up. And I don't know, I still don't know about this right. And pretty much this is where we're going to finish. Toy Basher made a very good point. Could there be any plans to possibly allow Insular Christians to join Crusades? So they were commenting a bit earlier on to PDXMeDoc saying that no, the Irish will not, or Insular Christians, I'm going to keep doing that Insular Christians won't be able to take part in Crusades. It's a bit ambiguous if Ireland participated in Crusades or not historically. Insular Christianity is a weird spot in Crusader Kings 3 currently. This is a point that I've made, as the Fate seemed made to allow polygamy in Ireland for game design purposes, but that is now a cultural thing, instead of tied to Insular Christianity. So this is the point. Insular Christianity seemed to be created for a specific purpose. Now that purpose is being handled by culture, and it's just becoming a bit of a muddled mess. Now Chrome responds, I think one of the main points of indigenous faiths like Insular is that they don't expand much beyond their cultural borders. Oh, so it would be counterintuitive to have Insulars joining Crusades. Again, this is our problem of treating Insular Christianity as though it was a real thing. Describing Insular Christianity as an indigenous faith. somebody made this comment on my last Insular video that there were pro and anti-Roman factions in Ireland, and that Insular Christianity could represent the anti-Roman faction. These are the realms of, I suppose, what you would call ahistorical thought that you begin to get into, and we do see how CK3 can encourage and guide serious historical discussion. I put up a couple of links to, is it Steyuki's video, his TikTok, where he talked about Mordecai, the King of Munster. Mordecai was never the King of Munster. It's a Wikipedia error that made it into CK3. And here is a minute-long TikTok discussing Mordecai, because it is taken as historical fact. It's in CK3, so it must be historical fact. And we start from this point, and we push on. The guys who did the Bright Ages, I watched some of their video with some of the CK3 devs, or there was a 3-part series, and they were again talking about how games like CK3, people can pick them up and gain an introductory knowledge. And the introductory knowledge that some games are giving of Ireland is a bit... This has been... I didn't so much get through this episode as I started, and then just slowly deflated all the ways through, because I became less and less and less certain of what I was saying as time went on. The Pope is polygamous. That's the only thing I know for definite. Absolutely, 100% polygamous. Beyond that, I had accepted, after the last video, that Insular Christianity should stay, and that the unique differences would be represented, or even in mods they would be represented, even if they weren't represented in the game. And the two that I said that would need to be changed if the Pope was being patched in and if Insular Christianity was staying, divorce always allowed, and the ability to appoint your own realm priest, or your own realm chaplain, or whatever the position is. Now Insular Christianity is just looking like a weird appendage that has no function, that doesn't really do anything. I mean, the most important thing was representing polygamy. That's now done through culture. I'm not yet ready to say, because I do agree with the idea that what Paradox is going to do is it's just going to keep creating more and more and more unique fates. I'm not entirely delighted with the way that the Head of Fate system has been handled. I genuinely thought it would be just hard-coded in that the Pope is the head of Insular Christianity and is the Insular Christian head of faith. The idea that the Insular Christians can still be cut off from Crusades, from elevation to the papacy and things like this is, I don't know how it sits. But again, I often make these sweeping statements, and then I actually play the game and it's like, oh, do you know what? This isn't actually half bad. I can live with a 10% dev penalty. So I'm pretty much going to leave it there before I say much else. It's been a strange one. It's been a really strange one. I'm a bit apprehensive as to how Insular is going to look in the game. It's not changing, other than the fact that you can ask the Pope for money. I think that's literally the only change. You can ask the Pope for money, and you can ask him, can you divorce 1 to 3 of your wives? So I am going to be picking up the DLC as soon as it comes out to see, to test drive the Pope and to see exactly how it all fits together. But I'm also going to be playing a multiplayer game, and that'll be streamed on the Irish Medieval History YouTube channel. I'll put links up on the Discord. That'll be streamed a couple of days after the DLC comes out. It's early June. I forget the exact date. The first week of June. And myself and the guys will be playing in, I think it's the 867 start. So myself and Michael are going to be in Ireland. Philip has already laid claim to Ivar the Boneless. So that's going to be an interesting playthrough. And we'll get to see how exactly the Pope plays out. I'll put up a link again to the video, the live stream that I was on there recently with them. If you have any questions or anything you want to discuss, drop a comment below. Head on over to the maniacalinc Discord, or check out on Fridays. Times are all over the place at the moment. But on Fridays I'm doing a thing called Chewing the Cud. So I'm playing Caves of Cud. I'm trying to... One Proud Bavarian has got CK3 and Vicky Aspec has gotten Stellaris for Dev Diaries. I want a Dev Diary show. So I'm looking at the Feature Fridays from Caves of Cud. I don't understand half of the actual updates. I don't understand what half of them mean. But I just play Caves of Cut for a few hours and stream on YouTube. And if you want to drop in and ask any questions. So yeah, there you go. There is your new look Insularism. Himself with his big hat down there in the bottom left. But so there you go. Divorce must be allowed. We have our right. We still have vows of poverty. So we can take a cut to our income and then ask the Pope for money. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see what it looks like when the game actually comes out and we actually get a chance to play it and see how well it gels together. So do check out the links below for Twitch, where I'll probably stream when the night the DLC comes out. And I'll have links up, like I said, to the Irish Medieval History channel, where we will be doing our live stream and we'll be discussing Irish medieval history from the time period and discussing how it is represented in CK3. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I'm sure that I will see you in the ever-increasing queue to meet the Pope and ask him for a divorce.